So for the next adjustment, we're going to make double exposure. So I'm going to start with a couple files that I want to combine. And I think about images where the images that I'm combining really work together to create a new image. I'm not just merging things together. So I'm going to drag those to the Photoshop icon and open them up. And what I want to start with is think about which is going to be my background image, which is going to be the image that I'm going to layer things on top of. So I really love, this image, the facial expression. I'm also really like how these are very similar, but red and green lights. So I'm going to start. With the red because it's a little bit farther back. I've got a little more negative space to work with. So I'm just going to go to this one and then Command A to select all or select all, and then copy it, Command C, and I'm just going to go over here and Command V. And use my Move tool, so there is that layer. Now, the most straightforward adjustment that I can make is just adjusting the opacity, right? And that's a pretty simple double exposure. You can see where they overlap. It can create some cool effects. But I can build a much more complex image. If I go to my, kind of layer settings, this is how those two layers interact. From overlay down is going to start to change how those layers interact with one another. So it's going to create some effects, similar to how it might look if you were to shoot it on film or shoot these double exposures in the camera. And there's not, depending on the image, they will look different. So you have to just kind of go through them and experiment. Difference creates a negative where they don't. So like that's really interesting. Exclusion, subtract. And again, as you drag that image, it's going to do different things depending on where the highlights are, where the shadows are. I liked exclusion was kind of interesting with the negative. I liked pin light is actually kind of nice. We're putting that. So it could be something as simple as this. But let's go back. I'm just going to go back to my normal, and I've adjusted the opacity. You can also use that as a tool just to see where the images are and how they might overlap. So let's say, for example, I want to do something like this. Right? Or maybe this side of her face that is more lit. Something like that. You can also adjust the size. So Command T, dragging from the corner, holding Shift. Say I wanted to match those up in terms of size. Press Return. So this is, let's just bump that opacity back up. That's the two different layers. And let's say I want to, flip one. So the brighter side is on the right for the green image. So I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. So that's going to flip just this one layer. So let's say we'll put it over again. I'm going to adjust the opacity just so I can see where it is, kind of line it up. Not going to be perfect. And now I'm going to make it a layer mask for that layer one. So if I click on the little rectangle with the circle, it's going to make a layer mask for that. And then just like dodging and burning, I want my hardness at 0. I'm going to lower my opacity about 50%. And then take my brush with the right bracket. Wherever I paint away is going to kind of erase that adjustment. Again, I'm on the layer mask, so this is that not the actual image. If I paint on the image, it's just going to paint black on the image. A little smaller. Now, I may choose to soften that to really try to make it look like, it's the same person. So something like that. Or I can play around with it a little bit more, have it offset. Something like that. It's kind of nice. So back to my brush. So I'm erasing again. I'm erasing through that layer, and it can start to get a little confusing. At any point, I can press the space bar to switch to the hand tool to be able to move around the image. And I'm just, sort of painting away those edges so that it doesn't look like two images laying on top. I'm just going to bring my opacity back up to 100, a little bit faster. And now if I go too far, I can always switch back to white and paint that back in. Opacity again. And X switches that, so you can see between erasing, painting in. Okay. So I like that. And now you'd also want to start with images that you've already edited and adjusted so that you're not trying to edit them after the fact. One thing I'm noticing is this little tear in the paper. So I click back on the background layer. It's going to go to my clone stamp tool, option, select, just to cover that up. I like this. I'm happy with this. So then I might go to layer flatten, file, save as, and then JPEG. Save maximum quality.